Hello, and welcome to the Magic of Calvin and Hobbes, a fan celebration. My name is Ryan, and I am a self-proclaimed Calvin and Hobbes superfan and expert.
And my name is also Ryan, although most people call me Indy.
Welcome back, listeners. I am so excited about this episode. Today's episode is all about dinosaurs, which, first of all, I love dinosaurs. Calvin loves
we
dinosaurs.
all love dinosaurs.
Who doesn't love dinosaurs? If you don't, and you're listening to this show, I hope by the end of this episode, you too will love dinosaurs. Because they show up a lot.
That they do. And part of loving dinosaurs is knowing about dinosaurs.
Yes. So today, we already know this is an educational podcast. We've learned words like vermilion. So,
And defenestration too.
Yeah. But today, we're going to make it real educational, and we're going to be joined by several guests who are dinosaur experts, like actual dinosaur experts, who will help us take a look at some of these strips, as well as some strips that involve extinct animals that aren't dinosaurs, and they're going to give us their expert opinion on the matter. So this is going to be a big nerd fest. Buckle up. Now, before we introduce our guests, Indy, I counted several strips that ran in newspapers where Calvin is either pretending to be a dinosaur or pretending to interact with living dinosaurs. So would you like to give us a guess how many strips like that you think there are?
Okay, so again, like we always talk about, there's a tendency to overestimate things because the things stand out so much, especially themes like dinosaurs or space or whatever. But that being said, I'm going to go an even 100 dinosaur strips.
Okay, yeah. So you would think so, right? But again, there's an overestimation here. I counted 37 strips that ran in newspapers where Calvin, right? Yeah.
That low?
Unbelievable.
It can't
that
be.
Low.
So I trust your count of this. You're very thorough with things. I'm just shocked because knowing that there's a tendency to overestimate, I thought, no, I'm probably safe on the dinosaur one. There's tons of dinosaurs.
Right? Yeah. It's shocking. But now I will say there are some others, these are ones where Calvin is actually pretending to be a dinosaur or pretending to be in the presence of living dinosaurs. There are also some others where he talks about dinosaurs without seeing them. He's viewing their fossils or models of them. And then a couple of strips that deal with extinct animals that aren't dinosaurs, like woolly mammoths or pterosaurs or things like that. So if you want to count those in too, then we're looking at maybe around 50.
Man, that is still way less than I guessed, though.
Yeah. And then there's a couple of things that are additional art, like the back cover of a book or something, that also have dinosaurs. So we won't hit all of the dinosaur stuff in this episode, but we're going to hit some important and fun themes. And oh my gosh, I am so excited for this episode. This is going to be great.
Yeah, so not only will we be talking about it, more so we'll have our wonderful guests to talk about them.
Exactly. So let's go ahead and introduce our guests. Today we have with us a couple of guests that I'm really excited about. We have Sabrina and Garret of the podcast I Know Dino. Hi, and welcome.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
And we also have Will and David of the Common Descent podcast. Thank you for being here.
Hello, happy to join.
So happy to be here.
Yeah, this is exciting for me.
That's true. So we're thrilled and delighted to have actual dinosaur experts on our podcast this time. We all know how big a role dinosaurs play in Calvin and Hobbes. And so this is something that I think a lot of our listeners would like to know. Did tyrannosaurs hunt prey using F-14 fighter jets?
Yes, the famous F-14 hypothesis.
Yeah.
There's
And
no
what
evidence
do we have?
Yeah.
No evidence they didn't.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Well,
because it would rust up between during the fossilization process. So like,
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
yeah,
F-14s don't have a great fossil record.
Mm-mm.
A lot of flying things don't
Yes,
have a really
absolutely.
good fossil record because they tend to they do their best in the air. Once they're on the ground, they tend to sort of fall apart.
Yeah, they're lightweight, and they have those fragile structures for lightweighting.
Yes.
I don't know though. It's been
Yeah.
captured in comic form, so
That is true. That we do have one piece of evidence. Yeah.
It sounds
Also,
like
if they've
science,
got
we can't rule it out.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
You can't prove a negative, right?
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Be irresponsible to just rule this, completely deny this.
There's the meme that stegosaurs are farther away in time from tyrannosaurs than F-14s are. So it's actually more historically accurate to put a
If
tyrannosaur in an
anyone was going to be
F-14.
using an F-14, it would probably be T-Rex as one of the latest surviving top predators.
Exactly.
Good point. Good point.
That would be a competitive advantage. So
Someone asked about this, and I checked the size of the cockpit compared to the size of a T-Rex.
Yeah.
And I should have looked at like the growth curve to estimate like the maximum age a T-Rex
Oh.
could fit in the cockpit.
Yeah.
I'm guessing like 5 or 6. Like
These
under
were-
These were
teenager.
Nano-Tyrannus piloted F-14s.
Oh yeah, that is the
That's
way
or
to
the-
do that.
You know,
Are these
it
T-Rex
actually-
sized F-14s?
It doesn't say Tyrannosaurus in F-14s. It says Tyrannosaurs in F-14s. So it
Oh.
could,
Yeah,
That's
so it
true.
could be.
Well, we have talked a bunch, both podcasts, I'm sure, about what we call ontogenetic niche partitioning, which is that the older individuals and the younger individuals were living very different lives and occupying very different ecological roles. And what better way to avoid overlap with full-grown T-Rexes for the young ones than to be hunting in F-14s?
Right.
Flying
Predator
around.
Pilot is really a young T-Rex's game.
it is. Those quick reflexes.
I don't do that anymore. I got out of that game.
So, again, thank you for being here. And I would just like for each of you to take a minute to introduce yourselves for our listeners. And since one of the lame things about being an adult is no one ever asks you your favorite dinosaur, would you also please tell us your favorite dinosaur?
What, you're in the wrong crowds. No one's
Yeah.
asking you.
Well, yeah, you guys probably get asked that all the time.
Yeah, so I'm Sabrina, and my husband Garrett and I do the podcast I Know Dino, where we talk about all of the latest dinosaurs. So we get into the weeds.
That we do.
And my favorite is Brontosaurus, which may or may not be valid, but as of now, I'm saying it is. So
Yeah.
I say
take it
it's
away
valid.
from me. Yeah.
Brontosaurus with an asterisk, and then the footnote is Oropatosaurus, if that's what you're
The
going
latest peer-reviewed paper says it's Brontosaurus.
Yeah.
So
for
that's
now.
what we're going with.
We're going with Brontosaurus. Yeah. I'm Garrett. Sabrina already gave the whole intro for us. And my favorite is Ankylosaurus because it's the best.
I mean, they're cool.
It's the
Wow.
biggest ankylosaur, and there's nothing like ankylosaurs today. I mean, there's nothing like sauropods really either, I guess.
Well,
There's
yeah.
nothing like any of them.
Yeah. Anyway, ankylosaurus is the answer.
Excellent pick.
I'm David. Will and I run the podcast Common Descent. Will is not my husband, although sometimes we wonder.
Work husband.
And Common Descent, where we talk about all sorts of topics across paleontology and evolutionary science, including, not uncommonly, dinosaurs.
What's your favorite?
My favorite is Deinonychus. Deinonychus has been my favorite ever since I was a kid, and I read some book about it that just made the case for how cool it is, and I've been hooked ever since.
Even after we found out how weird it was.
It just
More
makes
so.
it better.
Yeah.
Every time we find new weird stuff about dinosaurs, that's even better.
And I'm Will, the other part of Common Descent. And my favorite is Ceratosaurus, also for the weird factor of I love a predator with horns. That's just not something you get very often, and that's so weird. I love it.
Good point,
Excellent
good
picks.
points.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're talking about favorite dinosaurs, Indy, would you like to tell us yours?
yeah, so I hope it's not cheating to say two, but I think when I was a kid in particular, I like Stegosaurus and Triceratops the best. So I'm going to go with them.
Those are good ones.
You ever combine them and do the Triceratops head with those plates on the
Yeah.
back?
Ooh,
That would be amazing.
I don't think I did, but that does sound pretty awesome now that you mention it.
Try Stegatops.
I like
Yeah.
it. Well, excellent picks, and we will see some of those in Calvin and Hobbes. So we'll see which ones we get.
And Ryan, do
We
you
don't
have
get. Yeah. We won't see mine, unfortunately. So I decided I'm a sucker for big predators, and I also like the origins of dinosaurs a lot. So I went with Herrerasaurus. You know, a real
Ooh.
early
Ooh.
big predator. So
Nice.
afraid we're not going to see that one, but it's really cool.
They are weird.
They are.
Yes. All right, so let's talk about dinosaurs in Calvin and Hobbes. So Calvin, as we all know, is a 6-year-old boy and he loves dinosaurs, which is pretty common in little kids. So our first real question for you is, why do you think dinosaurs are such a draw for little kids?
Yeah. For me, the first thought I've always had is that it's the closest you can get to like movie monsters and dragons and God, like just all of the larger than life fantastical creatures that so many of our stories touch on, and that we're fascinated with it. These are the closest thing Earth's had to those kinds of creatures, and they were real, and we have their bones, and there's toys and movies of them. So it just, if you are interested in that was very much where my interests often got piqued, was like, well, yeah, if I can't have a dragon, this is really the next best thing, and they actually existed.
I think
that's
also
a really good point.
There's so much we don't know about them, so we can let our imaginations run wild in a sense too, and think about like, oh, what colors could it be? Like, sure, we know a little bit about some of them, but who's to say there wasn't like a fuzzy pink T-Rex?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I also
That's
think
my new image for T-Rex.
I also think part of it is sort of the same thing that gets people with ADD or ADHD focused on a special interest. It's that there's a huge variety of them and a lot of details that you can really sink into. So there's sort of a never-ending amount of information you can dive into. So if you find out about it, you're like, that's kind of cool, and you learn a little bit about it, it's like, oh, there's a lot more to learn. And you can just really get in there, and they're so varied. You've got like the huge sauropods, you've got little tiny birds, you've got everything in between, the biggest claws on any animal ever to live, the largest animals ever to walk on Earth. They have so many superlatives. So whatever kind of animal you're into, I think of it like Pokemon a lot, where it's like there's like 1,000 of them, and there's one for everybody. And just like Pokemon, I recently found out, is by far the world's biggest multimedia franchise.
Yes.
Dinosaurs are like kind of the biggest paleo thing.
Yeah.
Science franchise, you might like all of science, I think.
Yeah.
Are Pokemon dinosaurs?
There are Pokemon dinosaurs.
Yeah, some of them are. I also think, sort of building off of what Garrett was saying, dinosaurs for a lot of kids are among their earliest experiences being knowledgeable about something.
Yep.
And it's something that is very common. Garrett mentioned special interests. Dinosaurs for a lot of kids are their first special interest, one of their first times learning lots of names and maybe dates and places and hypotheses. Right. I think that there's something really so special for a little kid to hear adults be genuinely impressed at how much they know about something. And that is a really sort of universal factor with dinosaur kids.
So here's a big word that I know and my parents don't, and that kind of thing.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, I can say Parasaurolophus. Can you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I want to come back to something, because Garrett, you just mentioned that these range from the hugest sauropods, these long-necked, humongous dinosaurs, all the way down to tiny birds. And I actually wanted to acknowledge the fact, before we go on, that birds are in fact dinosaurs, because there are some Calvin and Hobbes strips that relate to birds, and so I'm counting them in this episode. So I just wanted to show a couple of those real quick. So this one's, we've talked on our podcast before about how Calvin and Hobbes can actually be more than just funny. It can have other emotions with it. So this is the famous dead bird Calvin and Hobbes strip, where it starts with this beautiful sketch of a dead sparrow or finch or something, and results in Calvin and Hobbes kind of contemplating, the idea of the fragility of life and all that. So there we have a dinosaur evoking these emotions. I find that very interesting. But coming to some funnier things, we have a hummingbird. Calvin the hummingbird zips by with a loud whir, and he talks about how hummingbirds have to fuel their metabolism with concentrated sugar water, and then the punchline is he's drinking soda, preferably loaded with caffeine. And then my personal favorite, and one of my dad's favorites, we have a sparrow landing on a branch and softly singing. And then
any kind of sparrow.
Yes. What kind of sparrow is this, Indy?
This is a song sparrow.
Yes, so swaying gently in the breeze, he prepares to burst forth into rapturous melody. On top of spaghetti. So those are a few of my favorite bird Calvin and Hobbes's. And since we're talking about birds as dinosaurs, can you just quickly explain for us and for our listeners what makes a bird a dinosaur, and even more broadly, just what makes a dinosaur a dinosaur? How do we know that things are dinosaurs?
Oh, sure. One of the ways that I often like to express it is that birds are dinosaurs the same way that butterflies are insects or bats are mammals. They're one branch of this great family tree, this big diversity. In the case of something like bats, right? Bats are the mammals that fly. Birds are the dinosaurs that fly. So they are a part of this big dinosaur family tree.
And
Yeah,
speaking of
excellent.
flight, there are types of paleo creatures that people think of as dinosaurs, but actually are not, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Pterosaurs, your Pteranodon and Pterodactylus and Quetzalcoatlus, they're sort of bat-winged. They're often depicted as more clearly reptilian. Those are not dinosaurs, not birds. They are a cousin to dinosaurs. They're closely related to dinosaurs, but they are not true dinosaurs.
And also, or most dinosaurs didn't swim. So almost anything you see that's a quote unquote swimming dinosaur isn't really a dinosaur, like a mosasaur, a plesiosaur, anything like that.
Then you've got Dimetrodon, which lived way before dinosaurs, but it's got that sail.
Or megalodon that was way after. It always comes in the kit too.
Yeah. Dinosaurs often get treated as this kind of like catch-all term, like bug, where like bug just means creepy crawly to a lot of people instead of being a specific group. But dinosaur have features that we can identify in the fossils in their bones that IDs them as part of the group Dinosauria. And birds have those same features, and we can trace their lineage back to dinosaurs in the past. So that's, it's not that birds got grouped with dinosaurs because we wanted them to. It's, when we looked at their features, they have dinosaur features. They have all of the telltales of a dinosaur.
Yep.
Yeah, and I know you've talked on both your podcasts, I think, about how a lot of bird features are actually more broadly dinosaur features. The types of eggs they have, the fact that they have feathers, stuff like that.
Yep.
The specific features that identify dinosaurs, like how does a paleontologist know for sure they're looking at a dinosaur? Broadly speaking, they tend to be very like esoteric, specific features of the hips or the ankle or the skull that reflect the way the body develops that is unique to dinosaurs. But once you start getting into the specific groups, it becomes easier, right? Sauropods are the long neck dinosaurs like Sabrina's Brontosaurus, and they have features that are distinct to them. The theropod dinosaurs, the ones that include T-Rex and Velociraptor and all those, include a whole lot of dinosaurs that are relatively small, stand on two legs, have long flexible arms, have feathers, lay nests of hard-shelled eggs, all the bird stuff. Birds are just one of that cluster of these small two-legged dinosaurs.
Yeah, and when you're trying to figure out which animals are within a group, some of the best characteristics are like David was saying, where it's things that don't have a lot of evolutionary pressure to change. So they're just things that get carried along. So it could just be something really simple about like the hip socket. And it's like, well, it's just like that. And there's no reason to change it. But if you find it, it's a key to noticing that they're in the same group.
Yeah. When those things do change, being able to follow it through the fossil record is the other way we get around that. Of you look like the last fossil, which looks like the last fossil, which looks like the last fossil. And we can track you back to now you are clearly just a dinosaur. And that shows us where you came from.
And as I understand it with birds, we have a pretty good fossil record as far as here are some not bird dinosaurs that look an awful lot like birds, and here are some that look even more like birds, and then here's an actual bird.
Bird, what we will often be referred to as the transitional sort of evolutionary path, which is a bit misleading because it didn't go dinosaur to bird. It went dinosaur to just a whole cluster of bird-like things that included birds. But
Yeah.
we have the evolutionary, the fossil record of that development is shockingly good for birds. It's one of the best transitional records in the fossil history that we have.
Yeah, the trick there is deciding what's a bird. And just like with what's a dinosaur, it's like, is it, when you
Word.
say birds, do you mean just the things that evolved into modern birds, which you'd call like crown birds? Or is it anything that evolved from a dinosaur, like Archaeopteryx, that looks like a bird and it flies probably kind of like a bird and it evolved? It's in the same general family tree.
Yeah, that very well may have walked and quacked like a duck, but
Yeah,
not
exactly.
wasn't.
Yeah.
All right. So you guys are adding to my headcanon. We've got pink fluffy T-Rexes and Archaeopteryxes that quacked like a duck. Now, and I'm just going to keep a
Duck
running
with
tally.
teeth.
There had to be
Yes.
quacking dinosaurs.
Oh,
Surely.
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So for this episode, we're mostly going to focus on the non-bird or non-avian dinosaurs, but we definitely need to acknowledge that birds are in fact dinosaurs, and dinosaurs did not all go extinct. We still have them today, which I think is super cool. But going forward, we're going to focus on both the non-avian dinosaurs and also other extinct animals, like you mentioned. Well, we won't see Dimetrodon in Calvin and Hobbes, but we'll see some not dinosaurs that are extinct. But before we get to that, I just want to give you a quick quote from Bill Watterson. So here's what he had to say about dinosaurs in Calvin and Hobbes. He says, "When I was Calvin's age, in the 60s, I had a nicely illustrated dinosaur book and some dinosaur models. So it was a natural step to have Calvin share that interest. The first dinosaurs I put in the strip were based on my childhood memories of them, and these drawings are now pretty embarrassing to look at. When I realized that dinosaurs offered Calvin interesting story possibilities, I started searching for books to rekindle my interest in them. Dinosaurs, I quickly learned, were wilder than anything I'd ever imagined. My drawings began to reflect the new information, and with each strip, I've tried to learn more and to depict dinosaurs more accurately. I do this partly for my own amusement and partly because for Calvin, dinosaurs are very, very real." So, David and Will, you guys right now are doing a segment on your podcast called Silver Screen Science, where you are looking at old school depictions of dinosaurs. You just released the one on the Lost World, the old 1925 Lost World. And Garret and Sabrina, you have a book that is kind of devoted to what did we used to think and what do we think now about dinosaurs. So on that note, can you tell us a little bit about how our understanding of dinosaurs has changed, specifically from the 60s to the time that Calvin and Hobbes was running, to the 80s and 90s, and then, if you'd like, even what we've learned since then?
You mentioned 60s, and my first thought was dinosaur renaissance. And that would have been a great time to grow up, and also a time of very fast-paced change in our understanding of dinosaurs and what we would have thought they looked like and how they acted, because it went from, there was a good chunk of time there where the thinking was they're these slow, lumbering, dim-witted creatures. And then that all changed like the late 60s with Deinonychus. And that's the one that looks a lot like Velociraptor. They're closely related. And then we see them in Jurassic Park, of course. And all of a sudden, it like actually goes back to an older way of thinking, which was, wait, dinosaurs could have been smart and agile and doing all kinds of stuff that we weren't thinking about for decades.
Yeah, and then quickly after that, you get feathers and all sorts of more warm-blooded, you could say, sort of behavior, more like a modern predator than some ancient thing. And part of that, too, is the idea prior to the 60s, or maybe even far prior, but for a long time, the idea was animals go extinct because they're just inferior, that there's sort of this march of progress of animals to like better and better forms, and dinosaurs were just a bad version of an animal, and therefore they were doomed to extinction no matter what, because look at this pathetic thing.
Despite living hundreds of millions of years.
Yes. Yeah. So eventually there was a recognition that like, no, they weren't doomed to extinction. There's a lot of luck and a lot of random things going on with the environment and asteroids and who knows what. So yeah, that recognition allowed people to look at dinosaurs as a little bit more capable of animals, or maybe even more capable than some animals that are around today.
And a lot of that change, some of that sort of recognition and changing of dinosaur images was due to new discoveries. Right, Sabrina mentioned Deinonychus, which got, this was a small active dinosaur that got renewed research attention. There were new discoveries. There were discoveries of nesting sites of dinosaurs and herds of dinosaurs that changed our understanding of their social behavior. But then at the same time, there was new technologies that were becoming available. Through like the 70s and 80s, we saw the rise of modern computer systems and analytical techniques, which allowed us to make comparisons between fossils way more effectively and in way more detail. And that helped resolve some of these relationships. This is around the time that the dinosaur bird connection starts to become more recognized and more of the general consensus. So it was a combination of new discoveries, but also new techniques. And then the dinosaur renaissance. We actually, Will and I were talking with Riley Black about this recently, and we sort of, I think in that conversation, loosely agreed that if the dinosaur renaissance has an end, it's Jurassic Park.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then Jurassic Park inspired an entire new generation of people. So the dinosaur renaissance not only changed our understanding of dinosaurs and the popular perception of dinosaurs, it also expanded the field of dinosaur paleontology by bringing in this attention and this renewed popularity.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, and even a little bit before Jurassic Park in the late 80s, we got Land Before Time.
Yeah.
Where the whole plot of Land Before Time and the main reason that it is memorable and traumatizing to people of roughly our age is these family relationships. The idea, like, these are baby dinosaurs being cared for by parents or older generations, which was still a fairly new take for a lot of dinosaurs.
Well, and it's interesting because when you look at the really like old stuff, like Lost World and things like that, there were, you mentioned that there were early on some of those ideas. It just kind of got overshadowed by the lumbering beast, but in that they do show some parental care in the dinosaurs, and they do show some active behaviors, and they do show some interesting things. It just wasn't the necessarily wide public perception, but the ideas have been there the whole time, just not as widely accepted.
Well, okay, so keeping in mind then how things changed from the 60s to the time of Calvin and Hobbes, and Watterson saying he did his research, I'd like to show you some Calvin and Hobbes, starting from early on and going towards the end of the strip, and let's see how he did. So I'm going to show you each, and I'd like for you to evaluate, what did he get right, what did he miss, and maybe look for, when did he kind of get there. Keeping in mind, Calvin and Hobbes ended in 1995, so that would be the cutoff for how much we knew. But then if you would also like to add on, here's something, if he had drawn Calvin and Hobbes now, he might have added this.
Yeah. So we're looking for transitional specimens in the strip itself, it looks like.
Exactly. Yes. All right. So just to describe for our listeners real quick, we have this strip where first Calvin is asking Dad if there were dinosaurs when he was a kid, and Dad says that he and his grandfather would put on their leopard skins to hunt brontosaurs for all the clan rituals. But all right, so now we get the horrifying Tyrannosaurus lumbering across the prehistoric valley. Only one creature dares to challenge the terrible Tyrannosaurus, the savage saber-toothed tiger. And so Calvin is sneaking up on Hobbes, and then he says, "Wake up!" And he says, "The meek Tyrannosaurus, victim of an innocent misunderstanding, tears like heck across the prehistoric valley." So, thoughts?
I love it. Well, it's so Fantasia. Like, it's so very Fantasia. The rite of spring and stuff, and it's got that classic hunched, but standing upright dinosaur. Tyrannosaurus has 3 fingers, and it's got the snarling face, and like, it's very nostalgic of old depictions of them, and it's I love it. I love this comic because of that.
Yes, that last image though reminds me of Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah,
the way it's
right?
running with its arms up. Yeah.
It's fast. It's got that going for it. Its face looks like Reptar to me from Rugrats. Like,
that was exactly what I was thinking.
Which I think it's like you start with one of those cheap, like, injection molded dinosaurs that have a mouth that's like a pipe that's been modeled into like a mouth, so it's so thin on the top and the bottom. That's what it looks like to me. Like, its skull is kind of missing a little bit on that one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the face, especially in that panel right in the middle where you get a good close up of the face. Especially the top of the skull looks like a crocodile. It's got this very flat head. The nostrils and the eyes are sitting up on top of the head, which what we see in crocs and gators, which allows them to peek up out of the water, which is, that is something that you see a lot in paleo art over time, is modeling dinosaurs after the animals that they remind us of.
Yes.
And crocodiles and alligators are one of the most classic, quote unquote, prehistoric creatures among our modern world. But to depict an ancient reptilian predator with a croc-like skull is extremely incorrect for T-Rex, but you can definitely see that connection. You can see where that inspiration gets brought in.
Yep. And then, of course, we have to acknowledge the timeline of the saber-toothed cat.
Right.
There weren't any cats, let alone saber-toothed cats.
Right.
Well, and,
And
it's fun because that makes this kind of a microcosm of those misconceptions and old tropes of just prehistoric creatures all living together, dinosaurs being big Godzilla-shaped things, and all of that sort of stuff. It's got all of those old habits, those old ways of portraying dinosaurs kind of together.
It's a good starting
Well,
point.
it even has the dad talks about,
Yes.
us wearing our leopard skins and hunting brontosaurus, which is another very common old school anachronism, Flintstone style, right?
Mhm.
Living alongside hunting dinosaurs.
Yeah. And I mean, I think Bill Watterson probably knew that both of those things were wrong and just included them for the joke. But yes, it's important to point out saber-toothed cats and T-Rex did not live at the same time, lest anyone think otherwise.
Well, and
this
it's
is
fun
also
to think of him saying like Calvin being into dinosaurs, of this being Calvin getting into dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Of like, yeah, when you the first time a kid goes, oh, dinosaurs are cool, it's usually going to be something like Dinosaur Train or the Dino trucks, the one where they transform into like something that's ridiculous, something that doesn't have, like mine was Barney. So usually a kid start getting interested in dinosaurs with nonsense, just the idea of dinosaurs, nothing accurate.
Yeah, I like that
all
reading.
the toys of dinosaurs you have, they must have all lived together, right? Because
Yeah, exactly.
this is my collection
Yeah.
of dinosaurs. These guys were all friends or enemies or what have you.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that reading, that this is an early comic, so this is Calvin's kind of first exposure, and he'll learn more as we go on. That's a fun way to think of it.
That matches up with some things we speculated about other aspects of the strip too, where we see kind of Calvin developing over time, which is reflected in his imagination.
Yeah. All right, so now we're in the late Cretaceous period when dinosaurs ruled the earth and Calvin ruled the dinosaurs. So here we have the terrible Tyrannosaurus sinking its teeth into a Triceratops, and he's fighting with savage ferocity, limb severing, bone crunching, tendon snapping, and then we snap to reality and Calvin just has this food all over his face. I love this drawing.
It's dinosaur time.
Yes. And so his parents are saying, Calvin, that's disgusting. Slow down and chew quietly. And then we snap back to the dinosaur eating with a fork and a knife. The terrible Tyrannosaurus resumes eating, mortified that someone might see him. So accuracy of T-Rex eating with a fork and a knife. Let's start there.
The T-Rex does not concern himself with table manners.
Well, and
Right.
of all the dinosaurs, would have the most difficulty using utensils to bring food to its mouth with its
It only has two fingers.
Yeah.
with 2 fingers and very short arms. It would need very long fork and knife with special grippers.
We'll need those little T-Rex like trash picker upper things.
Well, it needs when you like are your toddler to like learn how to use utensils, and they had like the grippy with like the finger holes for the. That's what T-Rex needs. Is little toddler helper. My first spoon and fork.
Yes. And then how are we looking on the T-Rex generally and the Triceratops?
It seems like the T-Rex looks pretty different in every panel to me.
It does.
Yeah, just depending on
Yeah.
what vibe they're trying to get across, I guess, like the aggression versus the mortified. I will say that first, but where it says Calvin and Hobbes and it's like the title, that silhouette is
pretty perfect.
Yeah,
it's very
Yeah.
good.
Okay,
Absolutely.
good.
And then the next picture looks very good too, other than I think it has a little bit of an underbite, so it's got a little bit of crocodilian teeth on some of the teeth. But other than that, it also looks very good. So
All right, so we're
overall,
already getting there then.
growing by
Yeah.
leaps and bounds. He definitely has regained his interest in dinosaurs.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is interesting that in the what I guess is the scariest panel here, there's this panel with the red background and the T-Rex is in sort of this dark, not quite silhouette, where it is by far the most, scary, monstrous depiction of this T-Rex in this comic. There, it also looks the least realistic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It has
Yep.
right. The skull has kind of flattened out again. The eyes are kind of popping. So it sort of has reverted to it. In a way, it is being caricatured in
Mhm.
Yeah.
the panel. But we also get the classic dinosaur fight, which is T-Rex
Yep.
versus
Yeah.
Triceratops,
Mhm.
which goes all the way back to like Charles R. Knight paleo art paintings in the early 1900s, which is a fully realistic dinosaur fight.
Mhm. Unlike the saber-toothed
Because-
cat, we've got a real.
Yes.
Unlike the saber-toothed cat, T-Rex and Triceratops not only lived at the same time period, they lived in the same place. They are
Right.
found at the same fossil sites. T-Rex was a big predator, Triceratops was big prey, and we even have fossils of Triceratops bones with T-Rex bites in them.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
this was a conflict that did actually happen.
Which is just so cool that we have those fossils.
Right.
All right, so now we're going to take a step back. We were just in the Cretaceous. We're going to go back to the Jurassic here. We've got a 30-ton Brontosaurus is about to face a premature extinction. The Allosaurus, fearsome predator of the Jurassic, stalks his prey. So we've got this herd of Brontosaurs unaware of his presence. And what would motivate an Allosaurus to attack a monster more than twice his size? And then we see Calvin jumping on his dad who's cooking hamburgers, and he says, "I'm hungry."
Also
So,
pretty
Sabrina, then.
realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
that's pretty. That's what would drive an Allosaurus to hunt a full-grown Brontosaur, because
Mhm.
otherwise that is an extremely bad idea.
Yeah.
Well, and
And-
I appreciate
And
that
there
we're
you go,
doing
Sabrina. We've
Allosaurus.
got your favorite here.
Yes. Yeah. And Allosaurus is hunting sauropods, and big sauropods and Allosaurus were around at the same time. I like that we're in the right time periods for both predator and prey.
Yep.
Mhm.
And the same ecosystem too.
Yes, I think the fact that it's Brontosaurus that's featured here is a testament to how popular Brontosaurus is, because we're technically in that time period where it was scientifically considered to be a Podosaurus, because it wasn't until 2015 that we got the paper that established it as being valid. And it was around 1903 when scientists decided that Brontosaurus and Apatosaurus were the same.
So for the full run of Calvin and Hobbes, it was between 1903 and 2015. So it probably should have been labeled as Apatosaurus, technically,
Yeah,
but it was labeled Brontosaurus in museums
because
and things.
Brontosaurus is so great, but
Mhm.
it was it was also labeled that way in museums, and then it was like that, or it came out in different media, and then it just kind of perpetuated.
But the shape and proportions and the way it's walking and everything look good though.
Yeah, it gave it
Yeah.
the right head.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. They even gave
Well,
it the toe claws on the front feet and stuff.
Mhm.
Like gave some details which are cool.
Yeah. Are those Brontosaurus in the foreground in the first yellow panel?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
first
Posture.
Brontosaurus.
Those are a little weirder than the first one.
Mm.
Okay. Okay.
Well,
Oh,
and
but-
I noticed that in the panel in that first panel, that just big, beautiful shot of the Brontosaurus looking great with the tail, trailing behind it up off the ground. But then in that middle right panel, it looks like the tail is now dragging on the ground.
Mhm.
So it
Yep.
has reverted a little bit, although it's possible that it is doing that because it's changing its stance to prepare for this approaching Allosaurus.
Yeah.
Well, and
they're
it
rearing up.
keeps the tail in frame for this shot as well, which I assume is
Yeah.
part of
Yeah.
the decision.
Yeah.
Funnily
Um,
enough, about the naming, that actually made it into a different comic strip Foxtrot. Jason, who also really likes dinosaurs, gets, I think it's like something in a cereal box maybe that says Brontosaurus, and then he takes it upon himself to write in to correct them and things like that. Yeah, so the debate on nomenclature for this dinosaur has not escaped comics in general, even if it was always Brontosaurus in this one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that the name Brontosaurus stuck around, and I like the name better, it means thunder lizard. Apatosaurus is pretty
Yeah.
good, deceptive lizard, but thunder lizard
hmm
That
is
does
because
sound cooler.
yeah. Well, Henry Fairfield Osborn, he was in charge of the American Museum of Natural History back when they were mounting the sauropod, and he decided we're going to use the name Brontosaurus, even though at that point the research had decided that they were the same. And only because Apatosaurus was named 2 years before Brontosaurus, and you go by the one that was named first.
Yeah. And the interesting thing to me with this too is sometimes we talk about dinosaurs are one of the only groups of animals where we actually call them by their scientific name, like precisely by
Yeah.
scientific names. If instead it had a common name like
Littlefoot?
Littlefoot, or like
Yes.
that long neck dinosaur or whatever, it
Or
wouldn't
if we
be
just called
incorrect.
them thunder lizards.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly. If we call them
exactly.
thunder lizards, then it would just be like, yeah, the thunder lizard's still a thing.
Just two more quick things back onto the actual panel. Allosaurus looks great.
That's exactly what I was waiting to say, because Allosaurus looks awesome. It's got the eye ridges. It's got the 3-fingered hands. It's got the right shape of face.
Yeah,
The
nice
skull
narrow
is
head.
really narrow. Yeah. And then what we keep referencing back to early paleo art, that bottom image of it like leaping forward is almost straight out of a famous Charles R. Knight dinosaur painting. This painting called Leaping Laylaps.
Yeah.
Another really neat note that I like in this comic is right in the corner of the panel of the Allosaurus approaching the Brontosaurus are 2 Rhamphorhynchus, are 2 little pterosaurs, and not just generic and then some pterosaurs. That's specifically clearly Rhamphorhynchus. It's got the tail that we attribute to it. It's got the right shaped face. It's the right size, and that's cool. He also made a point to include a specific and once again time period appropriate pterosaur.
Little Morrison Formation, Utah, Colorado snapshot from 150 million
I was
years
just
ago.
going to ask. So Rhamphorhynchus did live in the same ecosystem.
Absolutely.
So it sounds
Very
like we're seeing the fruits of Watterson's research that he talked about after those early inaccurate strips already.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it
This
sounds
is
like we got
very
that pretty
clear.
fast. All right, this is a great one. Now we're gonna lose some accuracy because we've got a Tyrannosaur and a helicopter and stuff, but we've so a little Calvin and Hobbes history for you. So Bill Watterson, when he first started Calvin and Hobbes, Sunday strips had a very specific format that he had to follow, and he hated it. And he went on a sabbatical for 9 months and negotiated this deal where he got a new Sunday strip format. So now he can lay out the panels however he wants. And one of the first things he did with that was he wrote this Tyrannosaurus poem. And we're going to start with a little inaccuracy. 80 million years ago, back in the late Cretaceous, lived the great Tyrannosaur, a fearsome and predacious theropod of monstrous size. So, I mean, it does say Tyrannosaur, but I think we do mean T-Rex. And 80 million years is a little too far back. But I'm going to forgive him because I don't think you could say 66 million years ago and have the meter fit. So
yeah, 72 is a little clunky.
Yeah. But so we've got our Tyrannosaur here. His jaws held teeth like railroad spikes with fore and aft serrations. This dental hardware was designed for quick eviscerations. This is a great poem. I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but when you have a minute, you should look it up and read it. It's fantastic. But we've got our Tyrannosaur walking around eating people as we would expect. What are our thoughts?
It looks so good. I love this art of Tyrannosaurs. It's so good.
I was thinking the skull too is very much like how we see it depicted now. We went through a period of time after Jurassic Park where it was more wide and maybe boxy kind of.
Yeah, like pit bully.
Yeah, but this narrow version is more what I think it's more accurate.
And they show in the second panel, even though it might be a little weirder looking, its body proportions in that one, its eyes are clearly both visible from head on, so you can tell that it has the binocular vision, which sometimes they make the head so wide that if you would have been in that positioning, it would be like the head, the eyes are like sheep sticking out to the sides.
Well, and it's clearly T-Rex. It's not just a predatory dinosaur. No, that the features, the shape of the skull, the shape of the neck and the body fits the reconstructions of T-Rex that you will see for updated versions. I also love that it's got patterning to it and coloration. That's so nice.
Yeah, and they give it the neck that you see on. It's kind of all over the place with necks on T-Rex even now, but this one I've seen more recently, not so much in the 90s even, where the neck kind of comes up behind the head a little bit, and it's not just like sort of sunken down as like an afterthought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Even the description of the teeth like railroad spikes with serrations. Yeah, they are. That's 100% accurate. They are very thick and round. A lot of dinosaurs, big predatory dinosaurs like Allosaurus, had pretty narrow teeth. T-Rex teeth were most often I hear them compared to bananas. They are very broad. They're sort of D-shaped in cross section, but they do have serrations, which I think is very funny because the poem says that the serrations, the teeth, are for quick eviscerations, which is probably true. But even more than that, the teeth are built for crushing bone and stuff. That's why they have that wide shape to them.
Yeah, terrifying. And the important question here, could a T-Rex take down a helicopter, and would it?
I mean, helicopters are kind of fragile, right? I feel like it wouldn't take that much to take one down, depending on where
Helicopters
it's
are
flying.
also terrifying.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's so loud and noisy. There's whirling blades. It probably smells gross, especially for an animal that isn't used to that kind
It
of.
has a fantastic sense of smell.
Yes, that has a really good sense of smell. It smells like oil and metal and gasoline and stuff. I can't imagine any living animal willingly going towards a helicopter in flight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very true. Unless there's some coincidence where it happens to sound like a threat from like a rival T-Rex. That's like the only scenario where it's going after
It's giving off infrasound that T-Rex would be able to pick up.
We didn't know that the sound T-Rex made was.
There's my next headcanon.
Now we're in trouble.
Yeah.
All right, David, this one's for you. We've got Deinonychus here.
Oh, hooray!
So Susie Durkins is playing at recess, and then, oh no, a pack of ferocious Deinonychus dinosaurs comes to get her, and with the grim efficiency of wild dogs, the predators have a meal. So we get a bit of Calvin's dark side here, but thus the weak and stupid are weeded out in a heartless but essential natural selection, keeping the human population in check. So,
Ouch.
A little gross,
Yeah.
but
This Deinonychus looks awesome. It looks so cool. This is the kind of stuff that really turned me on to Deinonychus as a kid. The shape is good, the size, even the shape of the head is pretty not too bad. The teeth have that sort of swept backward shape to them. That leaping art in the bottom left, I have seen that pose on Deinonychus skeletons in multiple museums. That pose, the Deinonychus in, I believe, the American Museum and the Peabody Museum is both in that pose, that jumping through the air pose. Very cool. It's such a cool dinosaur.
It is really good. The skull too, and like the bottom center one. It often seems like when he does a close up, he's putting in all the effort to make it accurate, and then when they're like the action is the important thing, maybe some of the details get simplified a little bit, which you can't. I mean, I think that's just kind of how comics go. You can't spend a month on the illustrations. But the only thing I would say is it is good for its time, but it's missing feathers. That's the big thing.
I was going to ask.
It is missing
and its
feathers.
hands are a little bit outdated in terms of it's got like 3 fingers in like I don't even know how to describe what, like a pitchfork.
It's the sneak pose as well, with the palms down, hands drooping,
slapping, not clapping.
Exactly, instead of the palms inward, which is a very classic way they were shown, especially like Jurassic Park and stuff made that posture famous. So it's not a surprise if you looked up references. It actually would be hard to not come across references of them shown with their wrists like that, because that's so commonly shown.
Yeah.
I like that they're a pack, though.
Mm-hmm.
I can't
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
when those theories
gonna
started
say.
coming out. Yeah, maybe it must be
That
around
was-
that time.
That was pretty early on with Deinonychus. So Deinonychus, dear listeners, pictured Velociraptor from the original Jurassic Park. That's Deinonychus. Although a little smaller, which I do like because Deinonychus was like 4 feet tall. But in this panel, they're hunting a child, which does make them extremely intimidating in terms of size. This idea of pack hunting raptors, like your Jurassic Park Velociraptors, is an idea that really, in many ways, has its roots with Deinonychus, where you had these fossil sites with multiple individuals preserved together, sometimes associated with large herbivores, and it gave rise to this hypothesis that they might have been pack hunters. Interestingly enough, there is very little direct evidence of Deinonychus and other similar dinosaurs pack hunting. It's been a hypothesis that's been around for a long time, and it's certainly possible, but it became the popular depiction of them almost immediately and has stuck around ever since. This idea of these wolf-sized dinosaurs hunting in packs like wolves.
Well, hey, we don't have evidence that they didn't. So
True.
Well,
That's how you know things scientifically. If you can't rule it
Right.
out, it must be true.
exactly.
they had to work together to survive the F-14 Tyrannosaurs. And, you know,
Yeah.
Right.
there's no
Yeah.
way they would be able to take that down individually.
Speaking of which, here you go. So
Oh,
the
there
last
it
one that
is.
we're gonna evaluate the accuracy of. So I like that in this one he's calling the prey chasmosaurs. I think I like the specificity there. But so they don't have just regular T-Rexes to fear. They now have Tyrannosaurs and F-14s to fear. So we already know we can. We don't have evidence that they didn't fly F-14s. But what else? What else do you see?
The Chasmosaurus looks awesome.
Hmm.
It looks so good, and very clearly is Chasmosaurus. When you like see it, it's got the frill shape and it's very recognizable. And this has that feeling we were talking earlier of like this feels like Calvin's first weird dinosaur name. Like he's Chasmosaurus is his new favorite instead of Triceratops because it's a little more niche, a little more, it's Triceratops is cool if you're like, in for the mainstream stuff, but I'm a Chasmosaurus guy myself.
Yeah.
It's got that feeling, which like I went through that phase, and I know my friends that went through that phase of this dinosaur is better because it's newer, and I've heard about it more recently.
And more
You're a real
obscure.
connoisseur at that point.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And you can see in the last panel where it shows him playing, you can still tell it's a Chasmosaurus because it's got this little tiny dip in the frill.
The
So
heart-shaped frill.
if you flip that toy over, it would have the little imprinting of Chasmosaurus on the bottom of it, and he's memorized it and he's faithfully representing that part of it. I like the 2 painted Chasmosaurus like kill marks on the side of the jet too, keeping track.
Well, the
Yes.
T-Rex has little goggles. It has little like
Yes.
aviators on, which as
again,
Garrett was
binocular
saying,
vision.
they had forward-facing eyes, so the goggles
Yeah.
you'd need big ones, but they would work.
Although there is a full canopy on an F-14, so do you really need the goggles? I don't know.
You gotta look cool.
Yeah.
And they might
Exactly.
have to eject, remember? So
Oh, good point.
Good point. Yeah. So I'd like to move on to a new segment that I have creatively titled "What's That Dinosaur?" So
should we do it more like a game show? Like, what time
what's
is it,
that
audience?
dinosaur?
What's that dinosaur?
Yes. So I'm going to show you some Calvin and Hobbes comics with unnamed dinosaurs in them, and I would like you to tell us what dinosaur you think it is, or it may not be a dinosaur. So if it's not a dinosaur, you can tell us it's not a dinosaur and what it is.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
are you ready, contestants?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Here we go. Comic number 1. We've got Calvin sitting in school, bored out of his mind, and then his desk suddenly turns into a dinosaur that he rides out of the school. What's that dinosaur?
I'm on my buzzer.
Styracosaurus.
Oh, yeah.
Styracosaurus.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
Styracosaurus for sure.
Yep.
It's
Yes.
one of my favorite. That like if Tyrannosaurus wasn't my favorite, that would be my favorite.
All right,
Yeah,
we've
that
got one for
frill.
Will.
That's a centrosaurine, not a chasmosaurine. For those keeping
Yes.
track at home.
Trying to get some
Just- yeah,
bonus points.
For our listeners who may or may not be able to see this comic right now. This is kind of like a Triceratops, but not. So this is a Styracosaurus that's related, but not a Triceratops.
Yeah, it's got a big
much
nose
cooler.
horn rather than the big eyebrow horns.
And then giant horns all around its frill because it's just made to be awesome.
Yeah,
Mhm.
just like a dozen more horns.
All right,
And then
so
it-
Indy, tell our contestants what they've won.
They won another panel to guess at.
All right.
Ooh, just what I wanted.
Yeah. So Miss Wormwood brings Calvin back to reality, but then he gets bored again, and now he's riding off on some creature. So tell us what that one is.
Undisclosed pterosaur.
Kind of like a pterodactylus shape to it. Like just a classic pterodactylus, but scaled up.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it's quite like huge Quetzalcoatlus sized, but it's like that could be like medium Quetzalcoatlus sized.
It's got the wing going like all the way to the leg, so this is definitely an earlier interpretation.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
but it has no long tail. It also doesn't have that head crest that we see
Yes.
in things like Pteranodon, and it's big enough to dwarf this child, and even carry it around on its back, which maybe yeah, that's probably not super out of the realm of possibility.
I could see it. I mean, these things were, if it is a Quetzalcoatlus, those things were presumably carrying off kid-sized dinosaurs and stuff, right?
They were huge.
If not on their back, in their stomach, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Wonderful. I would like your guess now at this one. So I'm not showing you the whole strip because I don't want to give anything away, but we've got a big predatory dinosaur. This is when Calvin and Hobbes have traveled back in time, and some sort of big predatory dinosaur is sneaking up on them. What would you call that one?
How do we buzz
Like-
in?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't have any buzzers. I'm sorry.
It looks kind of like Indominus Rex,
It does.
Right?
Ooh,
That
Yeah.
is true. Yeah.
which it predates by 15 years. So
Yeah.
that's certainly not what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be
Or 25
either
years.
Allosaurus, or if you're of the persuasion, you could give one of the Allosaurus a different genus. But I'm going with Allosaurus.
That would be my safe bet.
All right.
It does make me think of like Carcharodontosaurus.
I
That
could
would
see
be-
that.
It's not that
second.
sort of Allosauroid shape, but that reminds me of artwork I've seen of Carcharodontosaurus or Acrocanthosaurus, that sort of
Oh, yeah.
Carcharodontosaur
Mhm.
group.
Yep. That was the second guess.
All right. So here's your clue. Here we have, right before that panel, they're taking pictures of some stegosaurs. So turns out
that does rule out my
Allosaurus
guess.
is the correct answer. Yeah.
Back to the Morrison formation.
Yeah. You got
Yeah,
the three
let's go.
fingers.
Looks so
So
good.
if I were to show you the next comic, Calvin would identify it as an allosaur. He doesn't say allosaurus. So again, it could be something else, I guess, but he identifies it as an allosaur.
Saurophagon X.
Yeah, there you go.
Mm.
Well done. All right, this next one's just a single panel because the rest of the strip doesn't have anything to do with dinosaurs, but we have a picture of some dinosaur getting ready to munch on some plants and then a couple of pterosaurs. So
Me.
what would you call these? All right, Sabrina.
Brachiosaurus.
Yes.
100%. That's clearly Brachiosaurus.
Yeah.
Very much
They always
so.
have that kind of look on their face too.
Mhm. Yep.
A little bit crazed.
Yeah.
Well, I'm real high up and I'm not sure I'm comfortable with it.
And just starving, perpetually starving. I weigh
Yeah.
60
Yeah.
tons and I need so much food.
And huge, because you've got some pterosaurs in the front that are just like dwarfed by its
Yeah.
enormous head.
Mhm.
With little dimorphodons.
Little
Yeah, I think-
Dimorphodon. Yeah, they look
Yeah.
very much like Dimorphodon.
Which I just
So-
had to
Another one
double
of my
check.
favorites.
Might be a little early for, or it might be a little
don't
late for
know.
Dimorphodon, depending on
I
which
think
one.
Dimorphodon is like early Jurassic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And Brachiosaurus would be late Jurassic.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but we've identified this as a Brachiosaurus, and I do like the detail that it's chomping on what appears to be some sort of conifer. So it's not,
Mm-hmm.
he didn't put,
Mhm.
leafy trees in there, which
Yeah.
I think is probably accurate.
Yep.
It's got
Yes.
the teeth, right, too, I think.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, the
Those
sort of
peg-like teeth.
peg-like teeth.
Mhm.
All right, the
good.
next one I think is going to be a fun one. We've got a menagerie of dinosaurs here. So we've got Calvin
Ooh.
stomping through as some sort of predatory dinosaur, and then he goes, and then he apologizes to his class, who are all staring at him, saying, "Sorry, a little sinus congestion." But that's for our listeners. For you, what dinosaurs do you see, or not dinosaurs?
Oh, so many good ones.
I think Corythosaurus is probably the coolest one in
Yeah.
the spread,
Yep.
right? With the crown.
That's the one I'm most excited is included. That's one of my top hadrosaurs.
And for our listeners, that is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th panel. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
with that
wonderful.
rounded crest on top of the head.
beauty.
Corythosaurus' name means helmeted lizard.
It's a very
Mhm.
cool
Awesome.
looking dinosaur and a good drawing of it for sure.
Excellent.
Yeah.
What else do we have?
We
Those
got
look,
some pteranodons.
Yes.
I was going to say they look like
Mhm.
some emaciated pteranodons.
yes, yes.
Shrink wrapped.
Yes.
Shrink wrapped
Mhm.
pteranodons with that long crest off the back of the head. Not dinosaurs, but pterosaurs.
I'm gonna go with
Good.
Centrosaurus, I think.
It's got the really big nasal horn. But
Yes.
what got me, and I know it's not this because it wasn't named until recently. I was thinking Regaliceratops for
Oh,
the
yeah.
frill because of the way there's like a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
the horns that
ornament.
curve forward. I was
Yeah.
looking at that.
Yeah.
Centrosaurus
I
does have a
think-
little bit of that, but it also has like kind of a gap in the middle of the frill. But maybe it's just blocked by the other one's horn or something.
All right, so we've got Pteranodon, Corythosaurus, Centrosaurus. What's this one in the second panel here?
Oh boy.
My best guess would be like Compsognathus,
Yeah.
just because that's one of the it's a small little dinosaur, and that's the famous small little dinosaur.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Pretty
thinking,
prominent in
too.
Jurassic Park.
We need a
Mhm.
scale
Yeah.
bar
Mm.
for
Right.
Yes.
how
Yes.
big that is.
Based on the plants, you can kind of tell.
Yeah.
It's definitely
Mhm.
small.
Yeah.
Could be a troodon of something, some sort.
Yeah.
Like
That's true. This is a very Cretaceous page. We're
Yeah,
very
for
much
sure.
late Cretaceous.
T-Rex, I'm pretty sure the carnivore is.
Oh yeah.
yes,
Got it.
Down,
If we
down
could
in the
see
bottom
it-
left.
Mm-hmm.
That's you can see the bumps above the eyes, the
Yeah.
2 fingers. That's Tyrannosaurus.
If we could see the little
Which-
one's toesies, we'd be able to tell whether or not it's got a hook toe, and that would be a very good indicator as to
Ooh, yeah.
if it's troodon or
Mhm.
Compsognathus.
Yep.
Mhm. And I'm pretty sure we talked about our favorite dinosaurs. I'm pretty sure Calvin's is T-Rex, which may be a little cliche, but I mean, come on. It's a
Yeah,
T-Rex,
no.
so-
Still a solid
Yeah.
joy.
Can't blame
T-Rex
them.
is awesome.
Yeah.
You know, it also occurs to me here, like the expressions on the dinosaurs' faces, I think, are basically the expressions of Calvin's classmates.
Mhm.
Good point.
They're not so much scared as "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's once again, it's fun because it's got a bit of that Fantasia of the predator entering and everyone ba-dum, 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 but now with updated models.
Yeah. All right, here's our next one for you. So Calvin is imagining himself as something, and Miss Wormwood pulls him out of his fantasy and says, "We're studying geography. Now, what state do you live in?" Denial. I don't suppose I can argue with that. So, what dinosaurs do we see here?
Don't see
None.
any
None?
dinosaurs.
Trick question.
Very good. A trick question. No dinosaurs.
That pterosaur looks awesome.
They
does.
look so good.
I have no
I
idea what
hope
it
so.
is though.
Yeah.
I have no doubt that this is based off of an actual pterosaur that Watterson saw. Like this is too much like a real pterosaur to be that he just made it up. But I don't know what the name of what that pterosaur is.
It looks like
Yeah.
a real one.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's it. That's a real one.
We've got
Arm is
this
so
other
good.
animal coming out of the water.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't have a guess on this one. Do you?
I'd say
So that's-
Elasmosaurus.
Yeah,
Or
it's
some
going
kinda-
to be some
Mm.
sort of plesiosaur, and based on the thickness of the neck, it's probably something because there was you had the plesiosaurs had the long skinny necks like Elasmosaurus, all the way down to short necks with a big head like the pliosaurs. There were a
Yeah.
whole bunch that were in between, and this looks like one of those that had a moderate sized neck, a bit more
Yeah.
robust and a bit bigger head. Those were
That was
pretty
going
common.
mostly based on the teeth. Seemed
Mhm.
Elasmosaurus-y to me.
Mm.
But you're
Mhm.
right.
Yes.
The neck is going short, like more sturdy, bigger prey, but the teeth are going smaller, fishy prey.
Yes.
It's kind of maybe there is a plesiosaur that's in that
Oh, yeah.
category.
That that tooth structure for the longer necked, because this would still be a long necked, the neck is longer than the head is long. That was the common set of teeth, because even if they didn't use them for catching stuff, some of them are thought to use them to like sift through sand. So they had that same pattern of tooth structure.
I did like that was in a recent documentary. I forget which one. Was it the Netflix one or something? They showed them filter feeding with their mouth at us. It looks so ridiculous, but something's got to eat what's down there.
Now, could whatever that is take out whatever pterosaur that is? I mean, is there any reason to believe that something like that ever happened?
Yeah, we got gut contents of that happening for sure.
Awesome.
Everything ate pterosaurs. Everything that could sneak up on it or found one that, got injured and fell into the water or whatever, nothing's passing that up.
Very cool. I wasn't sure what the answer was going to be there. That's fantastic. Now, one more for you to guess what this dinosaur is. And this one's a bit of a trick question, but so in one story in Calvin and Hobbes, he and Hobbes go on a paleontology dig and they find what turns out in reality to be a bunch of trash, but they in their mind see it as bones. So they assemble it into a skeleton, and we have this scientific drawing here by Hobbes. So if it were a dinosaur or some prehistoric creature, what would it be?
It's an Alvarez-saur, and it's got toothless anteater mouth.
I was thinking Dinokairos because it's just so weird and goofy.
Okay.
Yes.
Its claws are not nearly long enough.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they just didn't find the whole, maybe it's a partial claw or something.
Yes.
What's the one? Is it Majungasaurus, or maybe it's some ceratosaur that has a little bit of a horn at the front of its nose?
Yep. Elephant feet as well.
Yeah.
It's clearly a penguin.
There you go.
I like it. So I've got a few other questions that I'm going to springboard off of that one for you. So that ends our game. Well done. You've all won the You Get to Be on Our Podcast prize.
Nice. It was a team effort.
Yeah.
But springboarding off of Calvin going on a paleontology dig, I'd like to talk a little bit more about just paleontology generally. And to do that, there's a poem in Calvin and Hobbes that I won't read all of it for you, but some of it goes like this. What if my bones were in a museum where aliens paid good money to see them? And suppose that they'd put me together all wrong, sticking bones onto bones where they didn't belong. Imagine phalanges, pelvis, and spine welded to mandibles that once had been mine. Or later, paleontologists there would debate dozens of theories to help postulate how man survived for those thousands of years with teeth-covered arms growing out of his ears. Oh, I hope that I've never in such manner displayed, no matter how much to see me the aliens paid. So my question for you is, do paleontologists ever put the bones of extinct animals together wrong?
There's some famous examples.
Yeah, it's typically not quite that egregious. I do like the implication there that that aliens are doing it. That makes all the sense in the world. Paleontologists have the benefit of the fact that dinosaurs are animals.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a really good understanding of how animals work. So generally speaking, paleontologists aren't going to put the teeth on the arms or the phalanges on the whatever. Dinosaur skeletons go together more or less the same way that our skeletons go together. The foot bones connected to and so on. So it's rarely quite so preposterous as Calvin is describing. But there are a number of stories of paleontologists making mistakes for sure.
Yep.
It's like the what do you call it? Metaphor? No, the analogy. Thank you. The analogy that it's like a puzzle that you don't have the image for, so you have to kind of figure it out. And so, especially in the early days of paleontology, people had no idea what to expect, and then you get things like iguanodon with the instead of the spike on the thumb, it was on the nose.
Yep. Yeah, but they were still doing pretty well with most of the bones they found, like Megalosaurus being the first mounted portion of a dinosaur. It was basically the hips and the legs, and like David was saying, it's like our hips and legs, so it's not really rocket science to put it back together. If you had an understanding of anatomy, you could do it. The bigger risk there is if you find a bunch of bones and they're from different animals, you might combine the back of one with the hips of another with the leg of a different one, because a lot of times these animals are found in a bone bed and they're just kind of all jumbled up. Most of the time they're not perfectly articulated into their lifelike posture. It's just a big mess. So yeah, you could easily make mistakes combining animals, or in the case of iguanodon, putting a feature that isn't in a modern animal in the wrong place, especially.
Yeah. Although to give them the credit where it's due, even in the early days, most of the time when you did get combining multiple individuals, it was multiple very similar individuals.
Exactly.
You know, it wasn't like the head of a triceratops on the body of a T-Rex. It would be, this has come up with things like, which would be extremely cool. This has come up with dinosaurs like Spinosaurus, where there have been a number of specimens where there's been arguments and revelations of, well, actually, some of these bones go to a different, slightly younger Spinosaurus individual, and some of these are maybe an older individual. But the overall picture of the dinosaur looked like Spinosaurus. Some of the details were wrong. Most of the sad but also happy reality is that most of the time when paleontologists put the bones together wrong, it's rarely very dramatic. I always think of there was a pretty famous within paleontology example of a dinosaur that some of the bones that they thought were part of the dinosaur were actually turtle bones.
Yeah, that's Therizinosaurus. That's my personal favorite.
And it's not Therizinosaurus that I'm thinking of, although that is another case where that did happen. But it was some like Oviraptorosaur or something.
Yeah.
Where it was like, oh, they mixed in some turtle bones, which sounds very preposterous. But the reality was it was like a couple of tiny little bones that had been mistaken as like collarbones or something in the dinosaur. So technically they were mixed up and wrong, but it was more of a technicality in terms of how the dinosaur itself was reconstructed.
Didn't change the appearance. But Therizinosaurus, so this one was named in the 1950s, and it's famous for most people because it has the longest claws of any animal ever to live, period, not just dinosaurs. They're like 1 meter or 3 feet long. And when it was found with a big turtle fossil, and they thought it was combined, and they thought Therizinosaur was this giant turtle thing, and it had these claws, but they had webbing in between them, so it was like flippers, and then it was on all fours like a giant weird flipper with like a dinosaurish face, and like so that's a pretty extreme example. That was the most extreme example I think we found when we were researching our book, looking for like the craziest one. I think that was the craziest one. Most of the other ones are honestly just like you find part of an animal and you're trying to project the rest of it, like with Dinocyrus, where you find these two big ferocious looking arms and you think, oh, that must have been like an Allosaurus but 60 feet long, and then eventually you find the rest of the skeleton and it just is like unlike any animal you've ever seen before. You can't really blame anybody for projecting it wrong because it's just such a weird animal and no one would have expected it.
And we've also gotten the opposite scenario where a single organism has been identified as two different organisms based off of distinct body parts that, in it for a simple reason, we would have never guessed went together, because what animal would have this combination of features? Chalicotheres is a great example, where chalicotheres are effectively gorilla horses. They've got a skull that's very much like a horse. Not dinosaurs. These are mammals, but they're got the skull of a horse and arms like a gorilla with claws on the end. And they found the claws and they found the skull and identified them as two separate animals. And the claws went to a giant pangolin, a giant anteater-like animal. And the head went to I think initially a kind of pachyderm elephant animal. And then they finally found them together and went, oh, well, that neither of those animals exist because this weirder animal exists.
Well, that was what I was about to ask, was whether there were any mistakes in paleontology that led to the supposition of like phantom animals, you might say. And it sounds like in that case there was.
The giant pangolin was talked about for a while, and like other people would find the claws and be like, we found another giant pangolin, and then finally realized, nope, these have all been calicotheres and are as surprising as it is, weirder than a giant pangolin.
Yeah. And I mean, on a less extreme scale, that happens constantly. And it's like a huge debate too, where paleontologists are saying like, no, you took those two and they should really be the same species. And a lot of times that's because you don't have bones that overlap. So you've got an arm over here and you're missing the leg on the other one. And people argue they should be different species, and other people say that they're actually the same. And it's a never ending, just, it can get a little bit annoying at times. The people that feel this really strongly about it because they've dedicated their life to getting it right, and they've put their, flag in the sand of like, no, these are definitely the same, or these are definitely different. Because the truth is, we can't tell.
Generally speaking, paleontologists strive to be careful, right? And especially as time has gone on. And so most of the really famous, ridiculous examples of fossils being put together wrong are not paleontological reconstructions, or not published. That, like, a Piltdown Man is a famous non-dinosaur example. Archaeoraptor is a famous dinosaur example of fossils that were kind of invented by smushing together other remains, but those were hoaxes. Those were intentional hoaxes made to try to fool people within the community. And then you have things like, very famously, Cope's where early American paleontologist Edward Drinker Cope reconstructed one of those long-necked marine reptiles, Elasmosaurus, pretty darn accurately, except that he put the head at the end of the tail instead of at the end of the neck, mistaking one for the other, which was a mistake that was pretty quickly rectified, a mistake that was pretty understandable why you think the longer appendage is the tail, but also Cope was just being not a very good scientist. That guy was not cautious, and he was hasty. So yeah, obviously he made mistakes because he was a jerk.
And then Mark pointed it out and started
and
the
another
wars.
jerk pointed it out.
Yes.
I was going to say his dear friend Charles Marsh.
Yes, they were roommates.
And listeners, if you don't know what the Bone Wars are, fascinating. Look that up. Yeah,
we did
Marsh
a whole
and Cope.
episode on that.
You think we did multiple episodes, right?
Probably. Oh, who knows? We talk about it a lot.
We have one Bone Wars episode and one Cope episode specifically.
Oh,
yeah. Speaking of debates in paleontology, there's a whole story where Calvin is given the assignment in school to write, to pick a debate and defend one side of the debate.
Right. So he picked the topic himself, actually, but it is about dinosaurs.
So, because he loves dinosaurs, the debate he picked was whether tyrannosaurs were fearsome predators or scavengers, which is a real debate, or at least it was. I think it's maybe fairly well settled. But so Calvin's report goes like this. I say tyrannosaurs were fearsome predators because it would be so bogus if they just went around eating things that were already dead. I'm a concise writer, okay? But the reason that he ended up writing such a short report is because by the time he thought of the idea, it was time for bed. So he didn't have time to really flesh out the details. And
he also spent a lot of time using the cerebral enhancitron to increase his brain power, but that took up so much time, and then he got distracted that then he didn't have any time to write.
Well, and then he had to spend some time making silly drawings of tyrannosaurs eating a paleontologist. So priorities. But if he had had the time, if he hadn't been so unjustly robbed of time to write this report, what might he have written?
I mean, that's actually a pretty good summary of why people say that it wasn't a scavenger. It has all of these adaptations that look well adapted for predatory behavior, which you don't really see on scavenging animals. So, and the other factor is it's so big and so heavy and powerful that it doesn't make a lot of sense for it to be trying to cover long distances in search of something. It looks like something that would be built for attacking, not built for, like, a vulture is one of the few pure obligate, or like all they do is scavenge, because they can, with their wings and thermals and whatever other adaptations they have cover huge distances looking for something that's already dead. T-Rex could not do that. It was so big, weighing 7-8 tons. That's a lot of energy to consume walking around looking for something that's already been killed to eat.
Well, and as you pointed out, vultures are one of our only large animal dedicated scavengers. So posing the debate of was it a predator, was it a scavenger, is a false dichotomy. All predators are scavengers for the most part. Like basically any predatory animal will take a dead prey animal, take some dead food if they come across it, and even animals that are exceedingly good at scavenging, like hyenas that can eat the whole carcass, are also going to hunt when the opportunity arises. They're not going to forego fresh meat if it is presenting itself or if there's no carcasses around. So saying that was it one or the other isn't how basically any animals work, except for some rare exceptions.
Yeah, it's kind of like herbivore versus carnivore. Like they don't care about our nomenclature and categorization.
Well, and one of Garrett's points, T-Rex being so big that, it's hard to imagine it could sustain itself just off of scavenging, is also a point in favor of scavenging, because if you're really big, you can scare other predators away from their carcasses. That's what lions do. Lions are the biggest, baddest predators around in their ecosystem, and they use that impressive size to steal carcasses from other animals that have hunted them. Yeah, this is one of those, Ryan, you said this was a real debate, and I held myself back from interjecting and saying, well, I mean, this was a very public debate that was put forth and popularized by really one particular very boisterous paleontologist, but there really, I don't think, has ever been a serious scientific debate about it, because like Will was saying, pretty much any predator, pretty much any carnivorous animal, especially large carnivorous animal, is going to do both. And I believe at this point we actually have pretty convincing direct evidence for both. We have examples of dinosaur bones with T-Rex bite marks, but the bite marks have healed, which suggests that T-Rex went after it when it was alive, and this was a failed attempt to catch something. And there's also at least one example of a bone that has T-Rex bite marks in it, but the bone shows signs of having already begun to weather or decompose before those bite marks were there. So these were likely made on a carcass.
Yeah, and they're like T-Rex scrape marks on bones that you wouldn't expect something that just hunted this animal to eat, like a toe bone, basically. Like that's not the prime meat that a Tyrannosaur is going for if it just killed something.
So the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's, as anyone today would define it, it's a predator. It's just that things that we call predators also scavenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, because as I understand it, the debate was, at least from the one guy that you mentioned, was there was one guy saying, no, it's only a scavenger. And everyone else is saying, no, you're crazy.
Yep.
Pretty much.
Calvin was right, basically. It would have been totally bogus.
It would have been bogus.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You could just look at it and see, like, nah, that's not a scavenger.
So maybe his report could have been even shorter. Nah.
Yeah.
Stop listening to that guy.
Right.
Some people have said T-Rex was a scavenger, and no, it wasn't.
We heard another paleontologist respond to a similar claim by just saying, that is a fiction.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
that'll work too.
Very nice. I will say,
I
so
have-
Calvin's like sort of plan of the things he's going to investigate to settle this is actually pretty good. It's just he doesn't end up following through with it.
Yeah, he said he was going to look at, skeletal structure and biomechanics and stuff. Like this is deep stuff for a first grader.
Yeah.
All right, I have one last question for you, which is about dinosaurs in education. So in one strip, Calvin's dad asks him why he's having such a hard time in school. He gets bad grades, but why? You love to learn. You've read every dinosaur book ever written. So why don't you like school? And Calvin's response is, we don't read about dinosaurs. So general thoughts on that, and more specifically, how much do you think kids should be reading about dinosaurs in school?
Well, you're asking
Maybe
a
the
biased
most-
crowd.
Completely
a,
objective.
a
I
crowd
know.
of dinosaur obsessed teachers.
I
Yeah.
can even suggest a book they should be reading.
Yeah.
There's this great book that a couple friends of ours wrote. The book is called I Know Dino, and it's fantastic.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
I
Yeah,
have it. It's
required
in the
reading.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's read this over the summer and then come in prepared to talk about it.
It sounds like Calvin has ADHD and that's his special interest.
Yeah. Yep.
I was gonna say that comic is so, you started reading it and I felt it deep inside of my core. I was like, oh no.
I was
that almost that exact sentence was said to me
Yep.
as a kid.
I was so disappointed in school when we finally got to history class, and I realized they meant recent history.
Yeah.
You're not
Human
history. And it's like, oh, well, then what's okay, fine, I guess.
Well,
Not
what
even
about
human history,
people?
like the
Ew.
last
Yeah.
200 years of history where you already live.
Yeah.
Yes.
Boring.
I think, I think that this is a very relatable experience for a lot of kids.
I've had students that have
Especially,
effectively said this.
Yeah.
Yep. And I have been a student that has said this. And I think really Garret has hit the nail on the head. I think that Calvin is a little neurodivergent child. And I think that this experience, kind of going back to what we were saying earlier, of kids, one of the defining aspects of a dinosaur kid is that it's a kid who likes learning. But for a lot of kids, it can be really hard to dedicate that same kind of focus and effort on something that they don't care about. And you could involve dinosaurs in basically every subject that you teach kids, right? Because we can do biomechanical studies using mathematical concepts. We can calculate the speed and size of a dinosaur based on its footprints. You can do ecological analysis, right? We're learning about food webs and stuff because dinosaurs existed in those. You can learn chemistry by understanding the fossilization process. It's a very interdisciplinary field. And so, if there's any teachers out there who are like, oh, I wish I could involve dinosaurs in this topic that I teach, call us up. We will tell you exactly how you can incorporate dinosaurs into basically any topic in school. You want to do World War II? I will start with a story about Spinosaurus, the skeletons in the museum in Germany.
Well, and I think also portraying it to kids that way can help get past these situations, because a lot of times the idea that dinosaurs are more than just the dinosaur book, the dinosaur documentary, the dinosaur toy, and that it's like, well, there's a history of how we've learned about them. There's the maths and everything. You were just portraying that to the kid of like, you may not like when you have to do writing prompts, but write about dinosaurs, and that's okay. You can bring your dinosaurs into how you relate to other things and realize that the same kind of stuff is happening. The same kind of, information can be used in these other categories. Can be helpful for the kids when they are struggling to be like, well, no one ever lets me talk about dinosaurs, or I never get to learn. And it's like, cool, but you can find opportunities to fit that in if you are a little creative here and there.
I like that. Yeah, that's great. Speaking of the idea of Calvin maybe having ADHD, someone wrote a whole thing about Calvin and how he ticks all the boxes. Calvin does this, and Calvin does this and this. I think you're right. I think he might be on that spectrum somewhere.
Yep.
I think it would be interesting if that was anything that Watterson had in mind, or it's just this is the imaginative child that he created, and as it happens, he fits this criteria.
Yeah.
I was going to say my immediate guess would be that Watterson was this kid.
Yes, exactly.
Watterson was self-diagnosing by writing Calvin.
Yeah, apparently he didn't get in trouble as much as Calvin, which is probably good. But yeah, you might be right about a lot of aspects of him.
Simply the fact that when he decided to start including dinosaurs into his comic, which has no necessity for them to be accurate, and then learned a bit more, and then did, like we mentioned multiple times, obvious deep dives into, you made sure that you're using the right animals in the right ecosystem in the right time period. Like that's not a typical level of hyperfixation. That is some nice neurodivergent hyperfixation right there.
Yeah, somebody pointed out the claws on the 4 feet of the sauropod. That's nobody gets that right. They always just put elephant feet on them and call it a day. That was perfect.
I think that also adds value to the strip, even beyond sort of the bias from this particular crowd. Like if I ask you guys, oh, isn't it great that he was so accurate with the dinosaurs? Of course it is. But I think even if you don't know those details, that makes the strip better for the viewer that they're there. Like you're getting this sort of elevated artistic representation, which in my book at least just adds to the quality and vividness of the strip itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's immersive into how Calvin is experiencing this daydream.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's one of the things that Watterson said, is that he often draws Calvin's fantasies more realistically than reality. And we're kind of seeing that here.
Yeah, it's sometimes the in-between one looks like halfway in between. Like the realism is like fading away as it like morphs into like the proportions or the posture of the humans that they represent.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for being here. This for me has been such a blast. Before we go, you all tell people about dinosaurs and other prehistoric things all the time, including, so we mentioned Garret and Sabrina, you have a book called I Know Dino, and both of you have your podcasts that are quite popular. Would you please tell any of our listeners who may not already be familiar with where to find you, where they can find you?
Sure. So if you want to learn more about I Know Dino, best place to start is probably our website, iknowdino.com. And then from there, we've got links to all of the socials. There's all the episodes are there, more information about our book, basically everything you might want to find out about I Know Dino all in one place.
And if you can't remember that, I'm just double checking to make sure it still works. Yes. If you go to Google and you just Google Dinosaur Podcast, Sabrina's good at SEO, so we're still on the top of the list.
For now.
Well done.
There we go.
Incredible. We are Common Descent. You can find us at the Common Descent Podcast. We also have a website, commondescentpodcast.com. Most of what we do is our podcast, which mainly focuses on various topics in paleontology, evolution, and Earth history. We also do side things. We do speculative evolution. We do movie discussions and things like that. And occasionally we have on guests who are doing other things. And I'm going to use that as an opportunity to even more, we were talking, this whole thing is about a child learning about dinosaurs. And in a very serious way, Garret and Sabrina's book is awesome. We weren't just jokingly. I have it. When you first brought it up, I turned to see if it was behind me. I have it. It's in this apartment somewhere. That book is so great. So go check that out. And then there are tons of other dinosaur and paleontology podcasts out there from all over the world. And there's a lot of other paleontologists who are also constantly contributing children's books and even adults' books to the literature available out there about dinosaurs.
Well, one more time, thank you so much for being here. This has been great, and I've been looking forward to this since we started doing this podcast. So
it was amazing to have all of you on. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
So much fun to get to talk about Calvin and Hobbes. I love it.
Yes. Listeners, please feel free to tell us your favorite dinosaur or your favorite not dinosaur. Anything else you would like to tell us. We always love to hear from you. You can email us at magicCandh@proton.me. That's MAGICCANDH@proton.me. And give us whatever feedback you'd like. We always love to hear from you.
That's right. And there are no ads for this podcast, which is also completely free. So whether you're telling us about your love of dinosaurs or your love of Calvin and Hobbes or your love of dinosaurs in Calvin and Hobbes or whatever else, we would just love to have you come along and celebrate the strip with us.
Absolutely. Please come along, ride a dinosaur, and let's go exploring. You've been listening to The Magic of Calvin and Hobbes, a fan celebration. We'll be releasing 40 episodes all throughout the year, from November 18th, 2025 to November 18th, 2026, to celebrate the 40th anniversary. Our intro and outro music is Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture, referenced in the Calvin and Hobbes strip published on October 8, 1986. This rendition was performed by the Skidmore College Orchestra and made available under a Creative Commons license on museopen.com. We hope you'll join us next episode for more fun.